Donald Trump has never actually declared war as president, but he is unquestionably in an undeclared war with Harvard. He's cut billions of dollars of their funding. He's called them a woke madrasa, and he has tried to ban foreign students from campus. A judge has put that move on hold right now. Maybe that's not the point, though. The fight itself is a win. MAGA loves nothing more than fighting with the elite in America. Dr. Steven Pinker, a Harvard professor, says Trump and his administration are suffering from Harvard Derangement Syndrome. He writes, the sense that something is not well with the university is widespread, but Harvard is an intricate system that developed over centuries and constantly has to grapple with competing and unexpected challenges. The appropriate treatment, as with other imperfect institutions, is to diagnose which parts need remedies, not to cut its carotid and watch it bleed out. With us now, Dr. Steven Pinker, co-president of Harvard University's Council on Academic Freedom, Harvard psychology professor. Welcome to the program, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I say this respectfully. Are you giving Harvard too much importance and brain space in the administration to say they're suffering from Harvard Derangement Syndrome?
Well, they seem to be obsessed with Harvard. There's a new headline about the Trump administration's attempt to punish Harvard every week. We did not try to get into the administration's sights, but they have taken a bead on Harvard and because the punishments come on multiple fronts. There's a threat to remove the tax-exempt status, though Harvard, of course, is not a for-profit corporation. Was the cancellation of all grants to Harvard, and then just yesterday, the revoking of, or the threat to revoke all student visas.
Do you deny that the administration has some legitimate gripes with Harvard?
Well, there are problems with Harvard, and I'm the first to point them out, as I have for 20 years. I've written several articles like The Trouble with Harvard, a 5-point plan to save Harvard. But there may be problems with your marriage. It doesn't mean that Donald Trump has the right to tell you what to do and to withhold your security checks, social security checks, if you defy him. There are problems, but the punishments have nothing to do with the problems. So, for example,
I guess though the flip side of this is that Harvard's shown an unwillingness, I think, to really fundamentally address and change. They seem to be keep giving lip service. I'll give you an example. The Harvard faculty. This is back in 2023. Liberal or very liberal, 77%. This is from the Harvard Crimson. Moderate, 20%. Conservative or very conservative, only 3% of some very brave souls willing to say that. That was back in 2023. Harvard did absolutely nothing about it. At some point, when you've got riots on campus, kids being surrounded and harassed, and the university doesn't do anything to protect them and doesn't kick out the kids who are chanting pro-Hamas rhetoric, doesn't the administration have the right to say you've become something else?
Well, they actually don't have that right. Harvard is a private institution. The government has limited powers. It can't force opinions on every private institution. And by the way, some of those things are really exaggerated. There were no riots at Harvard. There was an Israeli student who was taking pictures of a demonstration and was harassed, and they were arrested. They have to do anger management and community service. And that, and I agree, Harvard should have been more consistent in applying its rules for demonstrations that cross the line to intimidation and coercion. So I agree, that's something where Harvard fell down, but President Alan Garber introduced new enforced guidelines for protests and has centralized discipline to try to deal with that problem. But I agree, it was a problem, and Harvard is dealing with it.
We can agree or disagree on whether or not Harvard is dealing with it. But the one thing I think is interesting, and I think that people sometimes don't understand this about Donald Trump, he loves nothing more than a good fight. And isn't Harvard giving him exactly what he wants by fighting against him? The people where I come from in the Midwest love nothing more than seeing Donald Trump take on Harvard, and I say that respectfully.
Well, he's imposing illegal, unconstitutional demands on Harvard. So he's the one who picked the fight. Harvard is just defending itself.
But you say illegal and unconstitutional. Is it really illegal and unconstitutional to say that if there are people here from a foreign country and they have committed acts of violence or acts of incitement of violence,
We're not talking
Harvard
about
has
we're not talking about students who committed acts of violence. We're talking about every last foreign student. None of them have committed acts of violence. If they committed acts of violence, yeah, they should be in jail. That's not what he's done. He's trying to revoke the visas of every foreign student.
No, but the way he said for Harvard not to lose that right to have foreign students, I shouldn't say it's a right, I think it's a privilege, but we digress, is to turn over evidence of students who were inciting violence, who were chanting pro-Hamas slogans, who were organizing pro-Hamas.
By the way, chanting pro-Hamas slogans, I think, is despicable. But we have the First Amendment. People have the right to chant despicable slogans. That is what makes for a democracy.
I couldn't agree with you more. Okay, I will defend your right to my death, the right to you to say it. But is Harvard's going to the mat to defend and protect kids who are here as visitors, not American citizens? Yes, they have a right to say it. Well, they're not going to be thrown in jail for saying it. But yes, their visas can be revoked for saying it, and that's what they're looking for.
Well, first of all, a lot of those students were American, and the foreign students who are being kicked out, the vast majority of them did not participate in any demonstrations.
Okay.
These are my students. They're in my class. Yep. They're in my lab. They did not participate in any demonstrations, let alone violent demonstrations. Yeah, if they break the law, they should be out of here. They didn't break the law.
Okay. All right. Well, as I've said before, we admire you coming on and talking about this. I'd love it if you come back when we have a little bit more time and get a little bit more understanding of how this is playing out. It's an important discussion. It's good to see you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.